Mina Meitzal Karatiya. From the narrow place, we call upon the wide expanse. Anani B'merchavya. The darkest night is the one before the new moon. Anybody gone camping? Hiking? Then you know this truth. And we need the moonlight. And we need the dark. Our ancestors who did not have electricity appreciated the blessing of the darkness and the light guided by the moon. And they loved the new moon so much and waited for the crescent to rise. They invented rituals for it called the new moon, Rosh Chodesh. They created prayers called Hallel, the praise. And when the Muslim community came to be, the crescent is the sacred sign. This coming Thursday, Ramadan begins, the holy month of coming closer to oneself from the new moon and onwards. And in our tradition, the name we like to sing for the divine is often Yah, as in Min HaMeitzar Karati Yah. Hallelu. Yah means 15, means full moon. So when we come from the new moon, we wait for the full moon, and then we wait for it, for her, again, eternal cycles from the narrow to the full, from the darkest night into the light that pervades all of us, this light surrounding us. This is a moment before the new moon. As Shira said, Nisan is coming, the month of liberation, of Passover. And this year it's Passover and Ramadan, Easter, spring, starting soon. But right now we are in the nights of waning. The pre-birth. Valerie Kaur, a Sikh American spiritual leader, justice activist, in those first nights in 2016, when this country was pervaded by darkness, famously said, "What if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb?" How do we deal with the unknown, with the uncertain, with what may seem like a dark night, when there isn't a path lit ahead of us? When there isn't a grown-up there to say, "This is where we're going," or a child with that kind of wisdom. What comes up? What comes up inside when we hear ourselves, our leaders, the ones who are supposed to navigate our way, say, "I don't know. I just don't know where we are right now"? How does that feel? Where does it feel? This past week, as I shared with you earlier, I was in Israel for a quick 4-day mission organized by the UJA Federation of New York, inviting rabbis from all over the New York area to listen, to pay attention, to be in conversation, to learn what's going on right there and bring it back home. We heard a lot of conversation. We met a lot of powerful people in power and powerful people in the streets. We heard a lot of, "I don't know. I just don't know." This is the biggest moment of resistance in Israeli history. It is happening right now, and there is much that we don't know. You might love or hate Israel. You might be someone who just doesn't really care, not on your radar. That's okay. You might be a Zionist from birth or a post or anti-Zionist, and that's okay. You might be here on this Friday night for your soul and not for politics, and that's okay. I have my own subjective story. And what I'm here to do, what I'm here trying to do tonight, and you know that I don't usually write my sermons, but I did tonight, is share with you a little bit of what I saw and what I feel and what is happening. Because wherever we are on this spectrum, this is big. This is a game changer for Israel and Palestine. This is a game changer for the people living in that region. This is a game changer, potentially, for Jews everywhere. And who knows? Remember, light is emerging, and you don't contract, you don't expand. But now we're in contraction, maybe labor pains, but definitely fog. And because it is Shabbat, what's been on my mind in the last few days, and I will share in just a moment some actual moments of what I experienced. I want to share with you a fragment from the story that is told this weekend at every synagogue near you, and even here at Judson, from the weekly Torah cycle. And it's all kind of always comes together in some ways we wonder at and marvel. There were two slides that I wanted for tonight. One was sunrise in Jerusalem, Monday morning, for my super cushy hotel room. Thank you, UJ Federation. And this is Mount Zion in Jerusalem and the Judean hills. This is Israel and Palestine. This is night and day. This is the breaking of the dawn. Look at the sky. It's clouds. And in the story that is shared this week, we are ending the book of Exodus, the second book of the Torah. We left Egypt. We walked through the desert, and together we co-created a tabernacle, a sanctuary, our first mobile home to the Spirit. Everybody co-creates, donating and weaving, designing, celebrating. It's taken months, the biggest, most successful fundraising project in our history. And then comes the big day, inauguration. Moses and the entire crowd is excited. They're going to go in. The tent is done. It's gorgeous. He's going to cut the ribbon, but he can't because there is a problem, a smoke screen. The divine, often depicted as a fog, as a cloud, fills the tent so much so that he can't enter. They stop the live TV coverage. Everybody's like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? The book of Exodus ends on a cliffhanger. We cannot complete the inauguration. Stay tuned till next week. Which is exactly what happens next week at a synagogue near you. And the third book of the Torah opens up with an invitation from inside the cloud, from inside the smoke screen, from inside the unknown. The divine says, come to me. Be patient. This is not your show, Moses. Wait. I know it seems like uncertainty, but life is bigger than a tabernacle and a moment on TV. Wait. The third book of the Torah is called Vayikra. It is a calling, an inner calling to pay attention even when the fog, the cloud, the mystery, the unknown has taken place, especially then. And so this week's parasha ends with, I don't know. What the hell just happened? Where do we go from here? We don't know. And in that place of we don't know, this active waiting, this embracing of the mystery, I want to share with you just a few highlights of what I saw this past week on this tour. I want to first of all say that I'm honored, truly, to have been invited and included in this group of rabbis of all denominations, about 20 of us. I was definitely labeled as the kooky one on the left. And you're welcome. And I spoke up when needed to, and I'm glad I did. And we met ministers and people in the Israeli government. We were supposed to meet the president, but I'll tell you in a minute why we didn't. We met activists and experts and scholars and thinkers and people on the street, and we listened a lot and learned a lot. Here's the gist. A few months ago, a new government was elected in Israel, a far-right government, the most far-right government the country has ever seen. Why? Long story. Fear is a big part of it. And the evolving situation in the world. Hungary and Italy, what happened in this country and might happen again. The ultra-right patriarchy in the world is fighting hard, and so it is there. The current coalition is composed of some people who until a few years ago were considered illegal in Israel because of their racist, homophobic, misogynistic opinions and ideologies. But for a whole bunch of political reasons, they are now in power, and it is terrifying. But Israel is still a democracy, and there's still, to an extent, checks and balances and an opposition. However, one of the first things this government did was introduce a set of laws to put into effect as a judicial reform, to reevaluate the checks and balances between the Supreme Court and the government. As I explained it to my 12-year-old, if you really want ice cream and you go to mom and mom says yes, and then you go to Ima, or you go to Abba, because we got 3 or more, and everybody says something else, you're like, well, I don't know, well. So what they're proposing right now is to rebalance the checks and balances, and that is good, because Israel, 75 years old, needs a better judicial system. But what is being proposed, according to many, many legal experts, which I am not, is far too extreme, and it's going to put the power in the hands of a government, which right now is right-wing, and it could be something else, but it allows for far too much imbalance. And the fact that this government is a far-right, ultra-nationalist government with so much at stake is terrifying. And so people have been protesting in the streets, and this last Saturday night, there were over 500,000 people in the streets, from the left and from the right, secular, religious, old, young, with Israeli flags that have been reclaimed as a sign of saying, I'm fighting for my homeland, like never before, with amazing courage and creativity, and with so far very, very little violence. This is what's going on in Hungary and in Poland. This is what's going on in Turkey. And according to some historians and scholars, this echoes what happened in Germany in 1933, when laws were passed democratically that quickly became a dictatorship. Nobody wants that to happen. So the process is growing. The right and left, the center is kind of re-emerging. There has never been a protest of this size. Something is waking up. Everybody is out there, but actually not. You know who's not protesting? Palestinians and the 20% of Israel's citizens who are Arabs. And they're not because right now, and this is problematic, and I'll get to it, this is a conversation between Jewish citizens of Israel who are asking, how did we get here? And while the occupation of Palestine is not front and center, it is front and center, because this is part of how we got here. Also not protesting are the ultra-Orthodox Jews, the Haredim, who are quickly becoming Israel's majority. And they, to an extent, are benefiting from this government right now. And they're not protesting either. But this all might shift. From all the people we met with, there's one thing we heard loud and clear. There are decades-long grievances. There's discrimination and pain that is shared by so many in Israel who are saying enough. The ultra-Orthodox who feel like the Supreme Court have taken away their rights. Palestinians and Israeli Arabs who are saying we've been discriminated for too long, why even protest? Settlers who are mad at what happened back in 2014 and before that when their rights have been challenged. There's so much intergenerational PTSD at play here. What you're hearing are the screams of pain. Israel is waking up to its most important moment. It is being spoken of as a rebirth. A legislative, civic, judicial crisis is happening now because it wasn't done when Israel was formed back in 1948. David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, was supposed to create a constitution, but did not. They rolled it off and they said, one day we'll get there. That day is now. Or so we hope. This constitutional crisis can become a constitutional moment. Out of this narrow expanse, it might expand into a legitimate coalition of voices that create a constitution. But right now, what's at stake is what happened in this country close to a century into its independence, which might be a civil war. It's that serious. And it's terrifying. And we heard those voices. We were on the streets. As you know, I've been protesting here for the last few weeks, and some of you have been with us. It is rising. And who knows what's going to happen this Saturday night. Here's what's at core. Can Israel be both Jewish, the Jewish homeland, and can it be a democracy with equal rights for all? That's the big question. Can it be a Jewish homeland, and can it be a full-on democracy with equal rights for all? And I'll cut through the census and some other things that I wanted to share with you because it is late. And I just want to say the following. Wednesday night, the Israeli president spoke live on TV. We were supposed to meet with him that afternoon. He was busy. He was introducing an alternative judicial reform that he has worked on for several weeks intensely. The man looks bad. He's working hard to create a coalition of an alternative. And we were meeting at the exact same time with the Minister of Diaspora Affairs who shares the same name as me, Amichai, but very little else. And I got into a shouting match with him, which I'll tell you about some other time. We ended up taking a selfie and agreeing to disagree. But because, you know, we try. But while this was going on, what the president was presenting was an alternative judicial reform that was immediately rejected. And there's lots of blah, 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 why. But last night, just before getting on the plane, our group probably had the most meaningful encounter with a couple of people. One of them, my brother, but that's not why it was meaningful, even though he's amazing, and I'll get to that. But a gentleman by the name of Yedidia Stern, who is a legal expert and a very top expert in Israel, who has spent these past few weeks with the president creating this alternative, consulting an alternative that will be maybe accepted by all. And he shared with us last night from the room where it happened why the president's alternative reform failed. I'm not even sure how public this is, how public knowledge this is, but he gave us permission to say one word. There's one word that blew up the president's alternative reform, and that word is heartbreaking. That word is equality. The president inserted in his proposal that equality, shivyon, is a chok yesod, is in the initial legal stipulation as a must-have. And it was rejected. So who the hell would reject equality? I'll tell you who. Jews who prefer men's rights over women's rights, because that's how it's been in patriarchal Judaism for far too long. People who prefer straight over gay, and who definitely prioritize Jew over Gentile and Israeli over Palestinian. Because once you put equality in the core law as the president wants, then that is going to change the entire balance of Israeli legal reality. And there are so many of us. Half the country wants that. Let's be Jewish and democratic. We've got this. But half the country does not. And maybe it's not half. Let's hope it's less. But what's at stake here is nothing less than equality. And we in this country know what that's about. We know what that's about. And how much more we have to go to equity and dignity everywhere for everyone in this place that is struggling. And so it is right there, right now in Israel. The word that stumbled is equality. And that's why people are in the streets. And that's why the next days and weeks are critical. And we are in the moment before the new moon. And it's dark and we don't know. But I do not want to leave us on the down. Because we don't know is not always bad. The birth could be imminent, and the contraction will expand. We've seen things in this country. We were in this room the day after Trump got elected, and boy, we fought, and we're not done. So we're not done there either. We can do both. We must be both. Jewish and democratic, fully equal, despite our long heritage of a binary, biblical, misogynistic, homophobic Judaism we inherited, is what we here know is not who we are. And that is what Israel is fighting for right now. 75 years after its birth, it is possibly, finally redefining what it means to be a God wrestler, Israel. And I want to share with you briefly the last words that we heard from my brother before we got on the plane. And we're going to close, so we can close tonight and raise a glass of wine that I know I'm not the only one who needs. This coming Thursday is the new moon of Nisan. Passover will be coming when the moon is full. 40 days after this new moon is Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, that comes on the shoulders of Memorial Day for all those who have fallen in terror and in war. Those are 40 days. 40 days, anybody? 40 days on our calendar is what it takes from the first day of Elul into Yom Kippur. 40 days is the period of atonement, is the period of repair, is the period of cleansing. Just like now, as we are cleansing our hearts for the spring, we are invited to take these 40 days of cleanse, of repair, of atonement, of atonement. And my brother is working on this campaign, really just launched yesterday and just about to work. I translated it into English on the plane to call on Israel for a 40-day period into Yom HaAtzmaut, just like Elul, just like the high holy days. To pause. Calling on the government to stop the legislation. Calling on everybody to take a damn breath and take a step back before it's too late. 40 days, starting this Thursday. into Yom HaAtzmaut, so that we will not get into Pesach and into this 75th anniversary of this complicated country with bloodshed on our hands. 40 days to try again and try harder. You're hearing about it here. It's going to come out in the next few days. We're really hoping it will catch, because who knows if this is the moment of rebirth so many have been waiting for. In Palestine and in Israel, in Bnei Brak and in Brooklyn, in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, right here. So wherever you are on this spectrum, I have one request tonight: for you, for us to know, to listen, to pay attention, and if possible, to care. There's a big divide between Israel and those of us in the diaspora. As an Israeli, I feel it differently. And Lab Shul has not always prioritized Israel as our main thing. And we weren't even sure what we're going to do for Yom HaAtzmaut this year. But this is bigger than all of that. This is about the core value of what it means to be Jewish and human at this moment. And Israel is part of that conversation in a big way that calls on us to care. This coming Sunday at 12 noon across the street at Washington Square Park, we'll be back again protesting for Israeli democracy. I'll be there. This poster over there was designed by Ezra Beiderman, who created our High Holiday poster. Amazing, crazy poster. I bought a bunch more. I'm going to have it with me on Sunday. Join me at 12 noon if you can. We need you there. On Monday at 6 p.m., there'll be a Zoom with the rabbis who were on the mission to share more different perspectives about what we saw. There will be more events. There will be more opportunities to learn and to do. Tonight at dinner, we'll get there, I promise. Whoever wants to hear more, I'll sit there and we'll talk. We'll figure out what we're going to do in the next 40 days. Sometimes the longest, darkest night is a blessing to lead us into a new moon. Min ha-meitzar karati ya. From the contracted narrowness, we call upon the expanse to be our guide. I want to thank you all for listening, for being here, as inside the holy tabernacle, the holy of holies, where the cherubim, the holy creatures, were eye to eye, face to face. The divine exists in dialogue. And that is what is called on us right now, to be present. May this night bring light. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.